Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. This is my video analysis of Us, the Jordan Peele film. He wrote and directed this one. Of course, he wrote and directed Get Out as well. Get Out we already covered. I did an analysis of that. And we saw, of course, that that was about the three phases of the big plan and that they're going to enter into phase two around the buck moon, which would be when they enter into the phase of sort of breaking us psychologically in preparation for what's coming with the big transition to the new world order, or this sort of the perfected Eon of Horus. And now we're going to go on and look at Us. Now, this is probably going to be a pretty long video, but it is really interesting, and the message in it is very important and very clear. And I hope you'll get as much out of it as I have by just looking into it. This film is about the uprisings. The people coming out of the underground in the film are the protesters. It's the uprising of the minorities in response to police brutality, starting in Minnesota. All that is in this Get Out. In Us and more. And so I'm going to go through that, and we'll learn a lot along the way. So the main characters are here. So this is the family, the above ground family. That's Gabe, Zora, Jason, and Adelaide. And here is the tethered below ground family that matches them. Everybody has sort of an underground twin that has to duplicate their lives. The people who live above ground, the underground people have to duplicate the lives of, or imitate the lives of, whoever is above ground. So she's called Red. Red is the twin of Adelaide. And so when Adelaide married Gabe, Red had no choice but to marry Gabe's twin. And when Adelaide and Gabe had a child, they had a child. And when they had a second child and the child needed to be born by C-section, they had to have a second child. And whether or not the C-section would have been necessary to imitate what's going on up here, she had to have a C-section. But instead of having the comforts and conveniences that the people above ground had, the people below ground suffered a lot. And so when they were eating, they would eat. But they would eat nice, warm, tasty food and well prepared and all of that. And they would have to eat raw rabbit and just tear into it. When they get a toy for Christmas or a present or something, it would be a nice toy. They would be in icy cold temperatures with ice cold toys to slice their fingers. When she needs to have a C-section, they have doctors and anesthesia and things like this. And she had to cut herself open. Okay, that is the difference. They were going through hardship, and it's not just this family that has twins. It's everybody in the United States. It's all of America. Now, up here is from 1986. This is Adelaide right here and her parents. Now, in fact, it turns out she's not Adelaide. That's Adelaide. And she's a shadow person who escaped when she was 9 years old. And she is Adelaide. When she was 9 years old, she got put into the shadow world, underground world. But we can worry about that in a little bit. The point, though, is that we have this underground world, and then we had 1986, which is where the story is sort of set up. And so we'll get into that in just a minute. So the film begins with this on the screen about tunnels underground that nobody knows about, or they know about, they just don't know what they're being used for. They don't seem to have a purpose. So thousands of miles of tunnels beneath the continental United States, abandoned subway systems, unused service routes, deserted mine shafts. Many have no purpose at all. And so this is down there, and it's sort of paving the way for the story about how it's being used by the people who are going to attack. Now, the film, after that, opens with the television. So, news, California 11 news tonight, 11 at 11. And it's about a storm warning right away. First thing we see is a storm warning, which is our way of referring to the coming crisis in all these films. They call it, there's a storm coming, there's a storm coming. We see it in Donnie Darko too. There's a storm coming, better hurry. Okay, this idea of a storm coming. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a literal hurricane or something enormous. And I'm going to get into that in a video, my next video about Donnie Darko, and how storms were related. But the storm coming here, at least metaphorical, and probably some actual storms, but not necessarily earth-shattering, are relevant. But this is a storm that is coming, and you hear the people saying, tonight's storm is causing all kinds of problems around the bay. We'll have the forecast, and we'll show you what would happen to the bay if some scientists' predictions come true. All on 7 at 11. But that's interesting because the audio says 7 at 11 when the television shows 11 at 11 repeatedly. And so that audio is recorded over for some reason. I don't know if it's communicating something about July 11th or November 7th. I don't know. But it is, I'm going to flag it right there. That is, I'll call it a mistake in the script that I don't, in the film, that I don't think is probably a real mistake. Those numbers are too important to Peele. The 11s come up repeatedly in this film. 11, 11, 11, over and over and over again. We saw it on the cover on the poster, 9, 11. And so he is not going to just accidentally have a 7-11 when looking at an 11, 11, 11. And so that 7-11, I'm going to flag it as interesting and worth remembering. But what is the significance of 11? Because this comes up a lot in this film. And so let's go ahead and look at it from the perspective of Thelema, because we know that this is influencing their thinking. Chapter 10 of the gestures in Crowley's book, Magic in Theory and Practice, when they talk about the knocks or knells. Okay, in magic, they do knocking, and it's significant. In magical ceremony, the knock is employed like the chorus in a Greek play. It helps him to make a clean cut, to turn his attention from one part of his work to the next. But a knock doesn't have to be just one. It doesn't need to be single. We need only discuss the general principles of determining what number of strokes will be proper in any case and how we may interrupt any series so as to express our idea by means of structure. In other words, what he's going to say is they have knocking, not we. They have knocking in their rituals. And the knocking is not just a single knock. It's not just a knock. It's also going to be structured numerically after patterns in order to have meaning. Okay? And he's going to discuss this. So continuing on these lines, the number of knocks will refer to the Sephira, or other idea Kabbalistically cognate with that number. In other words, they're going to have a numeric importance, and we'll talk a little more about this. Thus, 7 knocks will intimate Venus, 11, the great work, 17, the Trinity of Fathers, and 19, the feminine principle in its most general sense. We don't need to understand all those. We're going to talk more about 11 in just a second. But notice that the number 11 here is representing the great work, and this whole these numerical values and their significance in these patterns are significant for the purpose of ritual ceremony or magical ceremony. Okay. Now, analyzing the matter a little further, we remark firstly that a battery of too many knocks is confusing. So they don't want a huge number of knocks. In practice, 11 is about the limit. If you go beyond 11 knocks, people are going to lose track of what they're doing, I guess. It is usually not difficult to arrange to cover all necessary ground with that number. A knock should be well defined. Its meaning should be precise. So now let's keep going. So they're looking for a great variety it's impossible to attain a great variety in smaller numbers. So, for example, the number 2, there's only one way to get 2. That's one knock and one knock. So 2 knocks. That's the only way to get it. There's no other combinations to get 2. However, for example, there are 3 ways to get 3 knocks. You get 3 equal knocks, knock, knock, knock. Or you can do 1 knock followed by a pause followed by 2 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. That's another way. Or you can flip that and put the 2 first and the 1 next. Knock, knock, knock. And so you can get 3 in 3 ways. And as the number increases, there are a greater variety of ways you can create that number or build that number. So you can get the 3 by 3 equal knocks, or 2 and 1, or 1 and 2. You can do 4 in more ways, right? So you can do 4, 1, 1, 1, 1, or you can do 2 and 2, or you can do 3 and 1, or 1 and 3, this idea. As the nature of the number becomes more complex, the possible varieties increase rapidly. The most generally useful and adaptable battery is composed of 11 strokes. The principal reasons for this are, first, 11 is the number of magic in itself. So all the 11s going on in this film flag the film as a film of ritual magic. I think that's important to note. You also, when we listen to the music, especially in the opening scene when the rabbit cages are shown, that the music has this sort of rhythm and trance-like quality, which is important for ritual magic. And we get a number of things in this film that I think point to this. But so it's related to magic. Secondly, 11 is the sacred number par excellence of the new Ian. So that's why for Crowley it's so important. It's a valuable, good number to have in your rituals, because that's the goal for them. All the rituals sort of aim towards to bring about the new Ian in perfection. Third, it is the number of the letters of the word abrahadabra. Sorry, I get a kick out of these magic words. It just seems so silly that adults sit around saying abrahadabra because they think it's going to change the world or whatever. But whatever, they take it seriously. Which is the word of the Ian. That's the word of the Ian, abrahadabra. And it's important because that's how many letters there are. 11 letters in abrahadabra. So 11 sort of represents the whole word, the word of the new Ian as well. And that word, the structure of the word, expresses the great work. So 11 expresses the great work in every one of its aspects. So it's like 11 is complete in its fullness of expressing the great work of bringing about the new Ian and all of that. Okay. And lastly, it's possible thereby to express all possible spheres of operation. Within the 11, you can express everything, because it has to do with the tree of life and all that. But the point is, you can express everything in there because you have at least 10. There's always 10 in combinations. All right, but don't worry about that. I should have left that in there maybe, but it would take more time. Now, here's an example of how he does this. We may conclude with a single illustration of how the above principles may be put into practice. This will make what I've just talked about a little more concrete. Let us suppose that the magician contemplates an operation for the purpose of helping his mind to resist the tendency to wander during the magic, right? It's important to keep focused. So that'll be the work of Yesod. Yesod? Yesod. I think it's Yesod. But he must emphasize the stability of that Sephira, as against the airy quality which it possesses. His first action will be to put the 9 under the protection of the 2. So he's going to use the 11 as his number. He's going to use a 9 and a 2. The battery at this point will be 1, 9, 1. The 9 is in the middle, protected by the 2, with 2 divided as a 1 and a 1 on the outside, holding it together. So you'd have like a knocking pair. Knock, and then 9 knocks, pause, and then knock. Okay? But this 9, as it stands, is suggestive of the changefulness of the moon. It may occur to him to divide this into 4 and 5. 4 being the number of fixity, law, and authority, and 5 that of courage, energy, and the triumph of the spirit over the elements. In other words, you can now divide the 9 into whatever is the most suitable structure or meaning of that number 9 for the purpose of the magic. So, for example, remember in the Simpsons episode where he says 5, 4, no time for full countdown, and then he has the 9/11 attack. That's a way of representing the 9, the 5, 4, but it's representing it these ways. They had the Clint Eastwood-like guy who represented it as a policeman saying this. So you have this representation of authoritative power and also the courage of a Clint Eastwood-type guy. He's not afraid. And so you get the 4 and the 5 making the 9, rather than just a 9, but it's still a 9. So this 9 is, and this is interesting, he says is suggestive of the changefulness of the moon. I'm not sure what that means, but when you just leave it as the 9 rather than as the 5 and the 4, it has some reference to the moon and some changes of the moon. And so perhaps, this is totally speculative, and there are a lot of people out there who know a lot more about this than I do, but when we talk about, they talk about 9/11 as a 9/11, not as a 5/4/11 usually. 9/11. Now, if it's a 9/11, it has some sort of element related to the moon. And so this emphasis on the buck moon related to the 9/11, perhaps with the eclipses of the moon and all of this being a part of it, I'm not sure. But continue to refer to it as 9/11 rather than 5/4/11 or 6/3/11 or something like that, probably has some importance with respect to the moon. I'm not sure. But it certainly is a Yesod. Okay, we're going to explain that in a second. But so let's continue. 4 is symbolic of the stability of matter, and 5 expresses the same idea with regard to motion. So I guess stability of motion. And so you get these meanings. The point is that you can break it up into different ways and have meaning, special meaning. The possible alternative would be to make a single knock the center of his battery, as if he appealed to the ultimate immutable Keter. I don't know how to say these things. Invoking that unity by placing a 4-fold knock on either side of it. In this case, his battery would be knock, then 4 knocks, then knock, then 4 knocks, then knock. You still get your 11. You still get the 2 on the outside, the 1 and the 1, making the 2 on the outside, and then you still get the 9 in the middle, but you divide it up so you get the stability, and then you get the immutability of the Keter, whatever, as the 1. Okay, the 1 is like nothingness to them, but because it can become all sorts of things. All right. Now, that sort of sounds confusing. I understand that's sort of tricky, but if we were to take a step back and just think about what's going on, they have a meaning for each number, and it's related to the tree of life here. And each number has a meaning, and you can combine them in different ways to communicate different meanings. And they would make that a part of the ritual magic. And how you put it, how you order the numbers makes a difference too. Like that 2 they put on the beginning, before and after the 9 to protect the 9. Okay, so it's a how you order it. Now the 9/11 is not 191; it's 911, which is interesting. And the 1-1 isn't an 11; it's a 2, because when we do these countings, when they do this counting, they usually go with what? The most generally useful and adaptable battery is composed of 11 strokes. I think the 911 is to be viewed as a 911, not as a 911. We talk about it as 911, but it's 911, and that's meaning that the numbers sum to 11, and the 1 and the 1 is actually a 2. That's the proper way for them to view it, for us to view it. And so we have a Yesod and a Hokmah. Okay, the 2. Now, when we want to understand the 11, we can understand that, as we've just seen, it's the number of magic itself related to the new Eon, in capturing the entire great work of bringing it about, and all of that. So when you see 11s, you're seeing a warning of the changes and the things that are going to bring about this new Eon to perfection. Okay, that's what that number is representing, and that's part of all their magic. It's a sign also that magic is probably going on. And so when 9/11, we see that 911, we're breaking up the 11 into a 9 and a 2, which is meaningful to them as Yesod and Hokmah, which, let's talk about what those mean. Okay, the Yesod, that's the 9. Notice the 9 position here in the tree life is towards the bottom. It is the foundation of the tree. If you sort of look at that as like a tree trunk and then the tree up here. You take this out, you have to rebuild. The whole thing sort of falls out from underneath it. Or falls out from above it. So Yesod, okay, is a node in the Kabbalistic tree of life. It is located near the base of the tree, above the kingdom. It is seen as a vehicle allowing movement from one thing or condition to another. So it's a vehicle for allowing movement from one condition to another condition. Okay. And it's related to foundations. That comes up a lot. I didn't include anything in there that said that I planned. Oh, no, right here. Foundation. Okay, so this is the foundation, and it's related to something that would allow movement from one to another. So 9/11 removes the foundation from a condition or state of being that was there before, or a thing. So it removes the foundation for it. And then we go to 2. And what is the 2? This is the Hokmah. And this is the, you can read that, pause and read it to save time. The idea is it's going to be related to creation or something new. Hokmah is the starting point of creation. All things are still undifferentiated at this point. So when we see the 911, we're saying a 9 related to a vehicle for allowing change from one condition to another through the removing of the foundation or changing of the foundations of society or whatever it is. Hokmah, the 2, is going to be the starting point of a new creation when all things are still undifferentiated and not defined. So in other words, it's like 9/11 is representing magically this desire to break down the foundations of prior society and to leave the world in a state ready for a new creation, with the new creation just starting in an imperfect way, like in a chaotic way. So it's all things are still undifferentiated. It's a mess. So a 9/11 attack for them is important because what the 9/11 attack does, whether it actually happens on the date 9/11, what it's doing is it's an attack that undermines the foundations of previously existing systems or states of affairs and replaces them or leaves behind them a new creation that is still sort of vague and needing to be formed and needing to be perfected, needing to be completed. And so that's what a 9/11 attack does. That's what the Twin Tower attack was, right? It was an attack that called for all sorts of changes in laws and the existing order in the United States, legally and rights and these sorts of things were being changed. But it didn't all happen at one time. It was like it left a new condition that gave them now 19 years to continue to change law, to change society, to change how we view normal ways of life. But that was, I'll call it sort of a minor 9/11. That was the beginning. And the next one is bigger and worse. Okay, but and so we have the 9, the destruction of the foundation, the 2, the starting point of the new creation, and the 11 as a whole is the number of magic itself, bringing about the new Eon, or expressing the whole entire great work, all the parts of it. Okay, so that's why this whole 11 and 9/11 comes up in this film, and we see the 9/11, for example, on the side of an ambulance. We see the 9/11. They make 9/11 calls 2 times. They talk about 911, right? This 911 is important because of the 9/2 combined with this 11, which comes up a lot. 11/11, 11/11, several times in the film, all related to this, and even I think an implied warning that this is what's coming. So back to the television, the 11 at 11. Hands Across America comes up, and it's related to something stretching from the Golden Gate Bridge all the way to the Twin Towers. Remember, this is an advertisement from 1986 when they were going to have the Hands Across America event. And during this event, 6 million people will tether themselves together to fight hunger in the United States. Visit your local record shop to figure out how you can be a part of Hands Across America. Now, in the film, the tethered individuals, the shadow people that are underground, are going to come out from underground, and they're going to kill the people they're tethered to get them out of the way so they're no longer in bondage to them. And then they are going to go and do the Hands Across America thing, where they're going to hold hands, tether themselves to one another, going across the country to do what? They're fighting against hunger. They're fighting against their suffering and their miserable lives where they've been oppressed and, held down. And so it's supposed to represent these protesters, in a sense, coming out, resisting the existing system, and then going out to show their own, sort of solidarity against hunger, okay, their own. They freed themselves from it. All right, now there's probably more to the Hands Across America. People talk about that as a big ritual event in 1986, and I would like to dig into that more. I just haven't had time to research, and I want to get this out before July 3rd and 4th here. Okay, so now between commercials, we see in the television that little Adelaide is sitting on the couch with her bunny to the side of her, and we've got these films over the side. This CHUD film is about people coming out from undergrounds and sewers and things. So these are carefully selected films as well. Goonies, a popular 1980s film for kids. I don't know if it's for kids, but kids used to watch it a lot. I don't remember it. Now, they go to the Santa Cruz beach. Okay, and this is, again, 1986. That's little Adelaide, the little girl that was on the couch. This is her dad. This is her mom. They've been fighting. It's implied. It's in the script as well. And he is going to topple this pyramid. He's doing the bottle pyramid booth, and he's knocking down the pyramids. Remember at the end of iPet Goat 2, the pyramids are destroyed. Pyramids are related to death, and that whole motif of death and resurrection. And that would be still that would be related to the Eon of Osiris, right? Death and resurrection culture, and so on. And so destroying that is all part of getting rid of the Eon of Osiris and replacing it with the Eon of Horus. Well, here we're getting some symbolism of that. We also know from the script that Adelaide here is 9 years old, and when he wins the prize, she gets the option: does she want to keep going, or does she want to choose something? And she says, "I want number 11." So again, we're getting the 9/11 right away. This is the very first scene of the film. So she's a 9-year-old girl wanting number 11, and what she gets through that is she's wearing a Hands Across America shirt, but she's going to get another shirt as a prize, and that is the Thriller shirt from Michael Jackson's song Thriller. I guess it's an album too. And I don't know if it's an album. I think it is, but certainly the song Thriller. And she gets the shirt, and there's a conversation about the shirt between the mother and the father because they've been fighting already. He wins a shirt, and she still isn't happy about that because she's worried that the shirt is going to give her nightmares or something, because she was scared when she saw the Michael Jackson music video for Thriller on MTV, I guess, at the time. And what she says to the girl's like, "I wasn't scared." And the mom says, "You hid your eyes when the people came out of the ground." So again, Thriller is being selected to be included here, very deliberately related to the coming from the underground. But it also is going to communicate even more, because it also communicates that what's being represented in this movie, Us, is not just going to happen in the movie. Watch. When we go to the Thriller music video, okay, Michael Jackson and his girlfriend, they're in a movie theater, and they're watching Michael Jackson with another girl, trying to date her in a movie. So he's an actor in this movie. And he says, "I'm different," when he's talking to this girl. And then you see the full moon, and he turns into a werewolf. Okay, and it's a horror film, obviously. She's scared, and she wants to leave, and she goes out, and he goes after her. He says, hey, it's only a movie. It's only a movie, like us. It's only a movie. This isn't really going to happen. It's only a movie. But then, even in Thriller, what happens? He walks her home, and what was done in the movie happens. He turns into, in this case, a zombie or whatever, and these other zombies crawl out of the sewers and out of the graves, and they all start dancing around and singing. Okay. And so what happened in the movie that they're watching here actually happened after it, even though he said it's only a movie. It's not only a movie. Well, same thing with us. What's being communicated is, one, she was afraid of the people in the underground coming up out of the ground. And where's she going to end up? She's going to end up in that very underground with them all. That's scary. There's also what also is being communicated is what I just said, that what's being communicated only in Thriller in the movie also happens in reality. What's being communicated in this movie is also going to happen in reality. Not literal people coming from the underground necessarily, but an uprising of people who are metaphorically underground. We'll see how that plays out. There's a song later in the film that makes this explicit. We're going to get there. Sorry it's taking a long time, but this is a whole film, and I want to analyze the whole thing here quickly. So now she's got her Thriller shirt, which again, if you look closely there, it does look like an 1111. And she's carrying her apple. Remember, in I, Pet Goat 2, the girl, the magician, has an apple in her hands, and that's going to be related to this. She's going to drop the apple just like the girl drops the apple, also right before the buck moon. So now let's keep going. Okay, so Dad goes to play whack-a-mole, and Mom went to the restroom, and she just tells her Mom tells her, stay close to her dad, and we hear thunder. So we hear that the storm is approaching, and the girl wanders off. So she wanders off, and as she wanders off, she gets close to, she sees this exit sign that's large from the ride, but you see the exit sign, and we see this man standing with a Jeremiah 11:11 sign as a warning. He's giving warnings. And over here, we have this pair of, this couple playing paper, rock, scissors, or whatever, rock, paper, scissors, and they keep landing on the same, same solution. I don't know, whatever it is. The same combination. So the same combination over and over again. And she says, that's impossible. And they do it again, and they land on scissors. But they're landing on scissors over and over again, I guess, or at least in the same combination over and over again, and then nobody's winning, and it seems impossible. So here we have a representation of mirroring or shadowing, just like we have the above ground and the below ground. We also get they land on scissors, and the importance of landing on scissors, the people from the underground are going to come up with scissors, and that's how they're going to do all their killing. Most of their killing is with scissors. Okay? And so that's a little bit of foreshadowing there, and it's interesting. But this Jeremiah 11:11, of course, the verse, the number is 11:11, figures right into this whole number thing that we've talked about, the warning and the relationship to magic and all of that. But the verse itself is, therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them. Okay? And it's interesting also that you get this in context, and the Lord said unto me, a conspiracy is found among the men of Judah, and so on. Okay? But there is going to be an evil that the Lord brings upon them, and no one will be able to escape, and they won't even get help from God, is the idea. Now, she continues to walk past the warning. So now she's, the guy was back there. She comes up here, and I'm going to propose that this isn't absolutely certain, but I think in context it is clear and correct, but it's not as clear as some other cases of eclipses. We have the light here. She's going to go down the stairs, and the light, as she walks down the stairs, he eliminates the light, blocks out, and we go dark. She goes down the stairs, and then afterwards, when she walks off, he pans back up to get that light back in. I think what we're seeing here is a representation of the eclipse. There's a second time in the film where Adelaide, the mother, goes downstairs, and we get a similar sequence where the light disappears and the light comes on again, and it falls in a sequence of events in the film where the eclipse would normally fall. And here this does as well. You'll see. But, don't need to read too much into it, but I'm pretty sure that's what's being communicated there. And so she walks down the stairs, and she looks out to the beach, the ocean, and you see the storm is approaching. She walks closer to the water, and then she looks back. She's got her apple. She's in her Thriller shirt. You see the storm, the lightning behind her is approaching. And what is she looking at? She's looking at this Vision Quest building. It's the Shaman's Vision Quest. Okay. And it's a Native American mystical themed funhouse with an entrance that faces the water. The facade is painted to resemble a forest with colorful images of spirit animals and a large shaman. I don't know if I say these things right. I've never been. Who glares, pointing to his. I said it right. Pointing his finger directly at Adelaide. Now the pointing. Later in the film, in the transcript, it actually says, like Uncle Sam pointing. It's like a bizarre, Uncle Sam pointing, okay, which has a reference to the government involvement, calling on people to do this. Okay, but because the uprisings, which is what's going to be coming out from the underground, it's like they're being recruited by the government in order to bring this about. I think that's being communicated. So signs, the signs on the thing in the script of the film say get lost and find yourself. In the actual film, they didn't put get lost. They just said find yourself. And a shaman, of course, is a person regarded as having access to or influence in the world of good and evil spirits. So we're getting a dual meaning here. It's not just the people being represented as coming up as protesters rising up. That's going to be a main theme, and it is a main theme, and I'm going to continue to show this. It's not hard to see it all. They make it explicit. But it is also representing, with the buck moon, we'll see, that this is when the demons, so to speak, are released. Okay. And especially among peoples in Northern Asia and North America, typically such people enter a trance state during a ritual and practice divination and healing. Okay. So she sees this and she starts to walk towards it, but she first lowers her apple and then drops it. We are now approaching the buck moon. This is in IPEC 02, the dropping of the apple is when the eclipse drops the apple and the moon leaves the eclipse. Okay. And that's when I was talking about the stairs going down. We're seeing the sequence because right now she's going to walk into this place, and right as she steps foot into the door, the rain starts to pour. Okay, and the door is a portal. In the script, doesn't ever say that in the film, but in the script it says Vision Quest portal. Adelaide walks toward the Vision Quest portal. She's then in the portal. Adelaide enters the portal just as the rain hits full on. Okay, and so she's entering, and then the rain hits full on. When? Right when you go to the portal. The spirit portal on the inside is going to be the shaman who has access to the spirits, and the spirits get to come out and in and all of that. Okay, what we're seeing then is the same sequence, eclipse and the storm coming with the buck moon and a portal there, buck moon or the Sirius disappearing July. So in other words, July 3rd through July 5th, we get the portal and the demons being released, the spirits being released. Now, she goes in, and what does she see right away? She sees, as she walks past down the hallway, but when we get a clear look at what she's looking at, we get a buck and an owl. So we get a buck moon symbolism, and even that there's, secret society stuff going on being communicated here, I think, as well with the owl. Okay, and she's hearing over there's a sound in this place, and she's hearing over the speakers a narration. And it's if you listen very carefully, I had to listen very carefully, it is a story of a creation myth. This is a creation myth of the Hopis. Okay, and what it is, long story short, it's a spider woman creates all things, but the people were bad, and so they had to be destroyed 4 times. And the final time, they finally sort of figure it out. But each time they're destroyed, the world changes quite a bit. But it's interesting, when they create them initially, they had a soft spot on their foreheads, and although it's solidified, left space through which they could hear the voice of God speaking, the Creator speaking, because those people could not speak. Now look carefully at the shadow people. Their heads, their foreheads look weird. See that? It's like a space in there. They can't speak in the film either. She speaks a little bit, but remember, she is not really a shadow girl initially. She was raised 9 years as Adelaide above ground, and she got taken when she goes into this place. So so she entered here. That's her that enters. But the girl who leaves here is the actual shadow girl, and Adelaide ends up being stuck on the underground for the next 33 years, I guess is what it is, because that was 1986 when she was taken, and the rest of the film is set in the present time, and the film was released in 2019. So 86 to 2019, 33 years. So it'd be a 33-year passage of time. So anyways, she speaks a little bit. They can't speak at all because the people in the underground, they can't speak. But what is that saying? That suggests that they're getting their orders from whom? From God, their Creator, who speaks to them through the gaps on their foreheads. All right? So that's what's going on there. That's why their heads are strange. And either way, so they go and they won't live in harmony with the creation, so it has to be destroyed. And so God will have to destroy the world, let me read that. So destroy this world, and that these few who remembered the Creator must travel across the land, following a cloud and a star to find refuge. So he opened a huge ant mound and told these people he was going to protect to go down into it, to live with the ants while he destroyed the world, in this case with fire. And he destroys it with floods. He destroys it with a polar shift of the earth. Listen, he says, another time he destroys it, he tells these beings to abandon their posts at the poles of the earth, and soon the world spun out of control and rolled over. Mountains slid and fell. Lakes and rivers splashed across the land as the earth tumbled. And finally the earth froze over, and nothing but ice age. And then it happened again with a flood. Next time, let loose a flood that destroyed the warring cities and the world on which they lived. And finally, the people were happy when they lived like the Hopi and didn't build up a society that was based on cities and all of that, but instead lived a difficult life, making it impossible for them to forget God. And that way they were to avoid the problems. That's their myth. But you see how the myth is sort of inspiring the film a little bit. It's about a spider woman who made all these things. And in the film, just a little bit later in Us, Adelaide, the mother, I'll call her the mother because Adelaide is her, but she's called Red in the script, and the other woman is called Adelaide. But that's to make sure that the sort of surprise ending is still a surprise. But anyway, so we have the spider and a little spider coming out of it. So we're seeing this sort of creation myth going on, being represented there. And when she's in here, she is whistling. She'll end up whistling the Itsy Bitsy Spider. And that song is whistled by 3 people, 3 times in the film at least. And so this whole spider creation, transition, destruction of the world, recreation by the spider woman, all that is a part of this. Now, here she's in the funhouse, I guess you call it, and there's a blackout. Every time in the film, just before the underground people come out to get people above ground, the people who are above ground, there's a blackout first. It's preceded by a blackout. The blackout happens at least 3 times. Here's the first one. This blackout happens just before she's going to encounter her shadow person. Okay. Now, blackouts are coming up a lot in people's discussions about what to expect in the next few days. Is it going to be an EMP? Is it going to be huge blackouts for whatever reason? I guess it could be. I think the blackout is related to the protests. There's a lot of blackout stuff going on right here. So, for example, this is an example of a poster for the 4th of July, the Blackout, where all black celebrate 4th of July with a blackout solidarity protest. This is related to the George Floyd protests, and these are going on all around the country, starting June 19th, but June 21st, day one, was the National Economic Withdrawal Boycott, which is called the Blackout protest. This is where people were boycotting any business that isn't owned by black people. Okay, so they started that on June 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It's a blackout week. And this headline, ongoing blackout week-long boycott as New York Police Department blue flu is expected on the 4th of July, that headline. But here, this blackout day is a social media promoted event in which all people of color are encouraged to not spend any money for a full day in hopes of attaining attention and resolve to police brutality. That's how it's written. It's a Wikipedia article, so we're not looking for excellence here, but you can confirm this in other places. Brutality and racism towards black people. It encourages the posting of content that was created by and features people of color, and so on. This began back in 2000. Blackout Day was launched on March 6th, 2015. And after December 21st, 2015, is scheduled to be held on the 6th day of every third month. Okay. Blackout Day 2020 has gotten widespread attention as a result of the death of George Floyd. Blackout Day, Blackout Coalition is July 7th, 7/7/2020. So they have another economic blackout day. We also have this blackout week, which is based on it, same sort of thing. And then we have these blackout solidarity events that are going to be happening on July 4th. So we're getting a lot of blackout stuff. And I suspect that these blackout events, which are going to appear to be pretty big from what I can tell. I mean, look at this one. Make sure to pull up and donate. The first 2,000 meals are free starting at 2 p.m. 2,000 meals means they're planning on at least 2,000 people. And so these are coming. And so the blackout is related to 4th of July events, and then also other protest events that are happening, starting with the Eclipse, and then also July 7th. I suspect that's probably what's going on. I think it's related to the protests and what's going to happen afterwards as those get worse. So anyway, she has the blackout, and then she sees this exit sign. That gives her hope. She thinks she has a chance to get out. But as we know, Peele likes to focus on this. You can't get out after this time. The time to get out was before the June 21st to July 5th. Once you get to those times, once you get to the blackout, well, there's no getting out. So you go over here, and she sees the exit sign. She gets excited. She basically goes over to it quickly, and she runs into a mirror. She hits it. There's no exit there at all. That was just a reflection, and she looks around, and she's in a house of mirrors. There's exit signs everywhere. She's in bad shape. And so she starts to whistle the itsy bitsy spider as she walks around to sort of calm her nerves. And then she hears somebody else whistling it as well. And that is her shadow. Turns out that's not a reflection of the mirror there. She's going to turn around and see her. And she's terrified. Turns out the other girl took her, drug her down to the basement, changed shirts with her, and then went out. And so on the Buck Moon, what happens? The first of these underground, in this case being represented as demons, is released. Now, what do we see immediately after this? Go straight to a rabbit eye. Again, this is all related to the Buck Moon night. That was all Buck stuff, and there's your Buck rabbit. Now, we get the wet rabbit eye. The wet eye is going to be interesting when we start to look at Donnie Darko. I'm going to explain it. We already talked about the wet eye and the ripple in the eye and the portal. Well, here we're getting similar symbolism in the script. It says, close up on a red, wet rabbit's eye. And then we get this song that is clearly sort of a ritual magic song. You can hear it. It has the trance-like character that we've discussed before in related to Crowley's ritual magic. A children's choir hums a dark anthem in a strange language. The song is melodic, and bright, hopeful, but also unfamiliar and wrong. Okay, and pull back, and we see a lot of rabbits. These are going to be in the underground. That's their food, I guess. So now we're going to go to the future. Now we're at the present. Adelaide is here. Okay, so this is her name now is Adelaide, but she took the name from the other girl. Okay, so that's Adelaide, and she's totally adjusted to normal life, and she's normal. She's not like sneaking around doing spy work for the underground folks or anything. She became normal, and I think that's part of the reason in the message why her getting out was important at that point, because it shows that the people in the underground are the way they are, not by nature, but by nurture. It's the environment they're in. When you take one of them out and give them 33 years up top, they'll be normal and healthy, happy, intelligent, match society. The people who are down there without language, it's not because it's totally impossible for them to have language, it's the circumstances. And I think that's being communicated. In fact, the girl who was up here for 9 years, if you sent her down there and put her in the same circumstances with the rest of the oppressed people, well, she's also going to have the same sorts of trials and difficulties. And so I think that's part of the reason why I threw that in there. But anyways, look at the shirts. You see the boy, Jason, has a Jaws shirt, and you see the girl has her rabbit shirt. There's the buck rabbit, and there's the Jaws attack that comes along with the shark attack that comes along with the buck. And you see, of course, the mouth is a crescent moon shape in the Jaws shirt, and the Jaws shark is coming out of the water, just like the shark out of the water on the chalkboard in I Pet Goat 2. Names of the people: Gabe, Zora, Jason, and Adelaide. Jason has a werewolf mask that he uses. Okay. Now we have a flashback. There's the little Adelaide. She's making a line, like the Hands Across America line, with these animals, almost like there's an attack coming. Okay, so I don't know. Just that's what's in her mind, I suppose, already. So I don't know if that tells you that maybe she did have some of this in mind or know about it. She does. She's afraid of it coming, and that becomes clear later. But she isn't able to speak at this point, and they use dancing to help her get out of this speechless state, because the parents think it's their regular daughter, and they're like, she must have experienced a lot of trauma in that 15 minutes she was lost. But it's just a different kid who can't talk. Okay. Let's see. All right, so now we get another sequence, which is going to be our sequence from the eclipse of the buck moon and the shark attack. She says, "Where's Jason? Where's her brother?" She doesn't know where her brother is, so she's going to go down the stairs. The light disappears. See how she goes dark again, just like when she was young. She went down the stairs to the beach, and it got dark. Then we get the pan up, we get the light. She goes down, and there's an emphasis on showing the light come back. There's your eclipse. Now we go up top. Up top, and in the bathroom, she in her bunny shirt is, I don't know, taking care of her acne or whatever. And the boy had been hiding under here. He's preparing to attack. There's your shark attack, getting ready. She, down below, gets distracted and pulls out of an old box her old bunny, her stuffed bunny. So she looks at the rabbit, and she's, having a moment of remembering this nostalgia, I guess. And at that moment, we go up, and he jumps out. The shark attack happens. She gets scared. Then he runs off and hides in a closet. And then he puts this ambulance in here, which is chosen, I guess, to sort of show the people being hurt by him, representing the pain or whatever. And there's ambulances throughout the video or the movie, a couple other places, with the 911 on the side of them, related to the deaths being caused by this attack, the attacks that are coming from the uprisings. While she's down there, she's having moments now looking at the reflections. Remember, this is right after the shark attack, and we're seeing the above ground and the underground reflecting one another here. This is her remembering herself as a kid when she was learning to dance. Now, when she was learning to dance, we see in the film, not only did she learn to dance, well, her tethered partner had to learn to dance too, because whatever she's doing, she had to do. Okay. Dad comes with a boat. Crawdaddy, that's in the script. They actually named it that in the script. So whatever boat they got there, they didn't just like get a boat with Crawdaddy on the side. They got a boat and they painted Crawdaddy on the side because that had some importance for the film. I suspect that has to do with, I don't know exactly what, but remember the crayfish is in the moon card. So maybe there's some sort of hint of that. I have no clue. But, you can think about that. It seems strange, right? They put this in the script. Like, we got to get that on there. I think the script is written before the film because the script was not followed perfectly, and the changes that are reflected in the film are not in the script that I have. Okay, which makes me think that this was the script prior to the production of the film, and then he tweaked it as he went. All right. So here they're going to go to the Santa Cruz beach. And he is snapping this fire thing. He can't get the fire to go, but he later on is going to get a spark out of it, a big spark, which is going to help him. Sorry, for some of these things are not that important, but I'm going through the whole film here. Now, as they enter Santa Cruz, they see the first death caused by the people of the underground. They don't know that's what happened. They just see some guy dying or dead. He's bleeding out. He's got his Jeremiah 11:11 sign. This is the guy who was doing the warning at the park 33 years earlier. Well, now he's dying, okay, or dead. And they're shocked by this. They tell the kids, don't look, and they drive past, and he's being put into an ambulance. So if he hasn't died yet, he's going to be dead soon. They go to the beach, and she sees the Merlin's forest. Adelaide has been scared of this, going to this beach because of this portal this whole time, and she's aware of that, but she hasn't told anybody why she's afraid, but she's coming across panicked. She was trying to avoid going and all of that. They arrive, and they're going to meet their friends, Kitty, and I forget the guy's name, but Kitty's the wife, the guy, so they're friends with the couple. And he comes out and he says, "You said 2:30. Where's your efficiency, man? Efficiency." We got held up. He says, "I'm just kidding." I think the 2:30 is interesting because 2:30 is another way of looking at the 23 using their numerology stuff. And we know the 23rd was a date that people thought, oh, maybe something's going to happen. And it's like, hey, you said 2:30. Where's the 23? What happened? And it says, we got held up. We're a little late. It's like they planned to have something come afterwards instead of right on it. I don't know. But so they have their conversation. She had some face work done. And again, the tethered partner of hers later cuts her own face, just like she had some plastic surgery done, because the tethered people didn't have anesthesia and all the normal things, but they had to imitate what was going on up here. So it was like torture down there. This scene is going to be interesting because we're going to see in a moment an eclipse here as well. A very clear one, where Frisbee comes flying in and lands exactly on the circle of the dot on the towel. And as she pulls the Frisbee off, it's a star and it goes to the side, just like you'd have Sirius to the side of the sun after the eclipse in the dog days of summer. Now, that's not just a coincidence in the film or something silly or we're reading into it too much. We actually get this explicitly in the film. She's startled by it. Adelaide is startled by the Frisbee coming in, and she looks down. The Frisbee has landed perfectly on the towel's large printed polka dots. Adelaide picks it up, revealing the same colored dot underneath. It really is eerily perfect. Adelaide is quietly concerned. Okay, she's actually concerned about the way this landed. I mean, a normal person's like, pick up the Frisbee and give it back to the guy. So they're playing up this eclipse being featured here as something that causes concern. It's like a warning of what's to come. Something's coming after this. And Kitty, the other lady's like, whoa, that's crazy. We've been having so many weird coincidences happening lately. Okay, and so this eclipse to star to the side of Eclipse is important, and it was deliberate, it was planned, and even played up as a weird coincidence that is a warning of things coming. Okay, she later on says there's been weird things happening. I think it's a sign they're coming for us soon. Okay, now, and the guy takes his Frisbee back, of course. And then after this, they don't just like move on. They zoom in on the circle, on the polka dot, and so it's a they're really trying to make you look at this and think about it. And that's what you're supposed to think about, what I just talked about, the eclipse with Sirius to the side of it, and that being a warning of the underground people coming and rising up against you and then coming after you. That's the idea. Okay, that's the warning. Now, while this was happening over here, that couple's daughters, they have twins, comes over and she's wearing a Black Flag shirt, which again is related to the uprisings. Okay, Black Flag, this is a band, and their logo was a black flag, which is the opposite of white flag. A white flag, surrender. Black flag is the exact opposite of surrender. It's fight back. Okay, and this band's logo was created to symbolize themes of rebellion and anarchy. As the band gained popularity, the logo was graffitied in and around Los Angeles, drawing the attention of police to the band's activities. Okay, and so this Black Flag, and this band also, there's the Black Flag logo again, was related to, you know, rising up against the police. They had this poster or drawing as well, which promoted the Police Story single, a song, and the song, it says, you know, make me come, and they shove a gun in the police officer's mouth. You know, make me, go ahead. So you see the rebellion, the uprising against the police in this symbolism. These two girls, they say the same thing, and then they say jinx, and then they say double jinx, and they say triple jinx, blackout. So again, we get the blackout warning here. Okay, the blackout is going to happen here before we go over and get the first example of an underground guy who comes out after killing his partner. The Jeremiah 11:11 guy, this is him. He's the first guy to line up waiting for the Hands Across America of these killers from the underground, okay, the tethered people. And so he's over there waiting. He's got a bloody hand. The boy just comes out of the bathroom, and he sees this. He's still wearing his Jaws shirt and, you know, his tropical shorts, and he walks over. You know, somebody could say, well, look, if we have Jaws rising up related to these shorts, maybe it could be like a Hawaiian tsunami from an earthquake or a volcano over there. People have been worried about the Hawaii thing. If you're worried about that, maybe that's a connection. But he's going to walk over and look, and he's like, whoa. And the mom gets scared. She's like, where's Jason? And she finds him, and they go home. Now, in the script, there was a plan to have on the way home this. And authorities are I'm up here in this corner, and authorities are in an active investigation of several stabbings that occurred earlier today, originally thought to be unrelated, but authorities now say they are investigating possible links. So they have this sort of this story about the killings are starting to take off around the country. But he kills that. He doesn't put that in the film. In the movie, he has in the house, on the background of the television, this news. Now, here's something you don't see every day, and it's unintelligible. Warnings in Minnesota. This is related to the stabbings. The first warnings that they talk about are the Minnesota ones. So this is where the uprising was planned to begin, even in this film. So it's like the Michael Jackson Thriller video. It's just a movie. Well, no, it isn't. And so they have in Minnesota that here's something you don't see every day. This is a unique type of warning, and given the script being about stabbings and all that, the warning is related to these early stabbings and riots. Okay, warnings in Minnesota. And then it goes on to the baseball game. 11-11, tied in the 7th inning. So there's your 7-11 again. And you also get the 11-11 again. Okay, so 11-11, tied in the 7th inning. And then the commentator says, yeah, see, Alistair, I think that's the name it says. I can't make it out. I've looked up pitchers, and does any team have an Alistair pitcher or a Hollister pitcher or something like that? I I couldn't find any, but I don't follow baseball very closely anymore. So if somebody knows, let me know. But it says it sounds just like Alistair is known for his late inning fastball. Comes in at a cool, I'm pretty sure it was 98, but again, it was hard to hear because I think there was another sound at the same time. Comes at a cool 90 or 98 miles per hour. 98 fits better given pitching in baseball. 98 miles per hour. And then, after a little bit, ouch, 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 ouch. I think it's implying that it was a beaned batter. Somebody gets hit by a pitch or something, but I'm not sure of that. But Alistair comes out and hits with a fastball late. So it's like it comes later than you expected. Right? But you get your warnings, you get your 11-11, you get the 7-11 in the seventh inning. And he's known for his late inning fastball, and he comes in 98 miles an hour. So maybe what it's saying is he comes out it's tied in the seventh inning, but we're not going to see it in the seventh inning. Not going to see it in July. It's late inning fastball, 98. Maybe you're going to see it in the beginning of August, 8-9 or something. Okay, I don't know. And then you get the ouch, 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 ouch. I'm not positive. But that is an interesting sequence. Certainly it's important because they already have the warning of Minnesota there. He switched it from just being some sort of generic, there's stabbings all around, and it could be, related to there's a warning in Minnesota about these. And now the score's 11-11 in the seventh inning and so on. Okay. And then as she goes to the bedroom, he says, I'll see you later in the magic room. And there's sort of sexual innuendo there. He's hoping to have an intimate time with his wife, I think, is the idea. But and he calls it the magic room in that way. But this is also, they don't ever do anything in there. But it's also, I think, important because it's related to ritual sex magic. It's a hint of that going on as well. We saw that in I Pet Goat 2, the rape of the whore. Okay, it's an important part of the magic to bring about the Eon of Horus in its completion. And so the rape of the whore, this would be maybe a suggestion that what we're looking at with the uprisings and what's going to lead to complete chaos in the United States is that this is the United States being raped. That is the rape of the whore. Now, but he's going to go in there, and that's when the blackout's going to happen in that room. But before we get there, she goes into the talk to her son, and he points over here to the clock, and it's 11:11, and she gets scared by that. So she's just like looking at that eclipse. She sees this 11:11, and you can tell she's startled by it. It alarms her. See, Adelaide pauses. Again, in the script, they say he points to his digital alarm clock, which displays 11:11. Adelaide pauses. Okay, so this is all part of the script. This is an important element. This happened right after the score of the baseball game was 11-11 in the seventh inning. We're seeing 11 and 11 over and over again. This is their warning. This is all related to their magic. This is ways of pointing to their 9/11 attack as well. I don't know that we're looking for dates there, but it could be a November 11th, I guess. But we are getting warnings and related these things related to ritual magic and transition and this new Eon. Remember the 11 in Crowley was what? Related to the new Eon and that funny magic word, I don't know, abracadabra, but their word, not that one. And so this is 11:11. They're on the verge of bringing it about. Now, she goes in the room and she's like, I don't want to stay here anymore. Let's get out of here. She's scared. And she tells him about her tethered person that she saw as a child, and she's scared they're coming to get them. And here's where she talks about the coincidences. You know when things line up? Notice she says line up. That's like an eclipse, right? Or Sirius lining up with the sun, okay, as in a conjunction. You know when things line up? The coincidences? Since we've been here, been up here, they've been happening more and more. I think they mean she's, her twin, getting closer. And he's like, the girl who looks like you? Because he thinks it was kind of crazy, but he's not saying that. He's trying to be polite. And then he says, well, if you're worried about that girl, he makes this little joke. He says, I'm here, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure I could kick your butt. So if she looks like you, and he was going to make a joke like, well, I could take her too. But he says, okay, not funny, my bad. I'm just trying to lighten the mood. And when he says that, the lights cut out. So he's not very, very effective, and they trade on that sort of lighten the mood. But anyways, here's your blackout, which means they're coming. The blackout indicates they're coming after the blackout. Now, there's the family. This is the family that corresponds to their family. They line up on the street, and they're, in the script, they're called the bad son, the bad daughter, the bad father, the bad family. So this is the bad one. This is the good one. And they're going to come and break into the house. She calls 911 already, so we're getting our 911 references in relation to the attack. Okay. They come in and they set up in the living room here. And the bad family is Abraham. That's Gabe's doppelganger. Umbre, which is the girl, the teenage girl. The name Umbre is from Latin. It's plural for shadows. So there's your shadow people. The boy's doppelganger. So instead of being Jason, he is Pluto. He breathes thick under his mask. He carries himself like an animal. Okay, so Pluto here. And of course, the other Adelaide is just called Red. Okay, in this film. But they're like, what? They're all scared. And Jason says, it's us. Now that's the name of the movie, Us. But notice us isn't really us. Us is them. And this is remember the reference, get out of the U.S. This is the U.S. They're representing the U.S. or part of the U.S. This is the uprising in the U.S. And that is not a stretch, because in just a moment, they ask her, what are you people? Gabe says. And they say, what are we? And she leans in. We're Americans. This is the uprising of the Americans who've been oppressed. They're us, the U.S. Okay? And so this isn't a stretch at all to say that the us, as the title of the film, also is representing the U.S. It is. It's saying U.S. And they're the Americans who are going to rise up and cause all this chaos in the U.S. Now, she explains in the sort of monologue what's going on. She talks, but she can't talk very well. She has a very hard time speaking. She's the only one who can speak because she had 9 years above ground. But she can't speak very well at all. It's like she's totally out of practice. And she just explains the situation, that she's a shadow and that she is angry about it, basically. That going through this period where she had to suffer and cut herself open to have a baby just to be a shadow of the person who had a C-section, all of that. You imagine that if the person up top dies, they have to kill themselves, things like that, right? It's the shadowing down there is like a horrible form of torture. And she finally realized that she was being tested by God, she says. All right, so the boy, he's out with the boy, and he finds out they're mirroring each other. The boy imitates him all the time. Okay. And what are they doing? They're doing an untethering. That's what they tell him. Now you go to the other house. This is the house of their friends, the friends with the twin daughters. Again, he's sitting there sleeping, and there's a blackout. Their generator powers up after that, but there is a blackout again right before the attack. Generator turns on. They look around, and out come the tethered shadow folks, and they kill them. Okay, they kill the family pretty quickly. The mom doesn't die right away, and this is important. She doesn't die right away, and she talks to her little, her smart gadget in the house named Ophelia, and she says, Ophelia, call the police. But Ophelia mishears it as a song request, F the Police, by NWA, and she's killed while that song is playing. But listen to the lyrics of that song. This is confirmation again. This is about the uprisings. While they're killing her, the song sings, F the police coming straight from the underground. A young minority got it bad because I'm brown and not the other color, so police think they have the authority to kill a minority. F that F that crap. Okay? Clearly, from the underground come who? The minorities who the police have been treating badly because they're minorities. And what are they doing when they come from the underground? They're going to beat a police out of shape, and when I'm finished, bring the yellow tape to tape off the scene of the slaughter. Down here, punk police are afraid of me? Huh. A young minority on the warpath, and when I'm finished, it's going to be a bloodbath. That song, obviously, is selected because that's what's being communicated in the film. From the underground, metaphorically, are coming the protests of the minorities who have been mistreated by the police, and it's going to be a bloodbath. That's what's being communicated. There are going to be enough of them to get everybody. That's the idea. And we're going to see that it's well planned and orchestrated. So after they kill off some of these protesters, if you want to call them that, they sit around the table and they're like, what are we going to do? They call 911 again, but you can't even get through because everybody's calling 911 everywhere. Like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get through? Or what are we going to do now? And they turn on the TV, or they watch the TV now, and they find out that this is happening everywhere. And in the report on television, they say it is clear. What is clear is that there are multiple assailants and multiple casualties, and one common thread seems to be the use of scissors or shears to commit these attacks. And they look like us, said Gabe. This isn't the news now. And Adelaide says they don't even know that yet. But then the news anchor continues. To our knowledge, no group has taken credit for this attack, and we have new images coming in. Okay. We have new images coming in from Chicago. And the television cuts to a camera, phone footage of this is the line, this is the phone footage. So you see the Hands Across America line, the tethered individuals are starting to make their line. And he says, this seems to be a group of individuals engaged in some sort of demonstration or protest. It's the protesters coming from the underground against the police, against the people who have lived comfortably while they have been kept under. That's what's going on. The film is about the protests. Now, again, of course, Channel 11 News, Cal 11. He says, I don't know, but Gabe says, that would take a boatload of coordination. And that is indicating that this is a highly coordinated event. This is planned for a long time. And they talk about this in the film too. She says, they've been planning for years. We're just learning this. They've been planning for years to do this. Whatever they plan to do, I think it's being communicated that these protests are going to be big. And they're going to be well organized, much better than we imagined. This isn't going to be just sort of protests and uprisings that happen. It's going to be organized like an attack. Okay? And that's because it isn't just protesters. It's actually orchestrated by the elites, and they've got their ways of doing this. They've practiced in lots of countries. We all know that. Okay? So these are these uprisings they have. Now, after this, they leave this house. Okay? They leave the house. They try to go somewhere else. They don't know where they're going, but they're going to get out of there because they know the shadow folks are going to catch up to them and kill them. And so they go and they leave, and on the way they encounter this this place, this scene. They encounter the boy, this is Pluto, and a fire behind him. And so you see the fire back here. It's a scene depicted, it's representing a very hot scene. You have the sun out, sun beating on them, and you've got the fire. Now, what goes on here? The boy, Jason, says, get out of the car. It's a trick. He's going to light a fire and try to blow him up in the car. And Jason gets out, and immediately he passes in front of the sun right here. He's eclipsing the sun. He's got his werewolf mask down. He goes in front of the sun, and immediately after, he situates his head directly where you would have Sirius after the eclipse. So you have the eclipse, then Sirius. And notice Sirius is the dog star. He's a werewolf. Wolf's a canine, right? So I think that's not too much a stretch. I think he's representing Sirius here. And he's going to stay in conjunction with the sun throughout the scene. Okay? So he goes here, it's actually there, and keeps going. And he's going to start walking backwards because he notices that Pluto is doing whatever he does. So when he starts to walk backwards, Pluto starts to walk backwards. You see him right there. So he's walking backwards. And Pluto then is retrograde at the same time as the sun and Sirius are in a conjunction. And Pluto retrogrades right into the fire, and you get this fire back here. Okay? And this happens throughout there. And you get 2 other times where he passes in front of the sun. I don't know if that is a way of representing eclipses. I think it's just representing Sirius in conjunction with the sun, like it's the double sun at one time. Okay, but we get this eclipse first, and then we go back with so we get our symbol there, the eclipse with Sirius symbol, and then he goes back, and we get the conjunction. And that period of time matches when Pluto is retrograde. In fact, Pluto retrograde started on April 25th. And goes until October 4th. So the whole period of the dog days of summer when Sirius is in conjunction with the sun from July 3rd, I guess today I'll be uploading it July 3rd, through August 11th, Pluto is in fact retrograde. So what that scene is it represents this time that begins right now when he goes retrograde. Actually began with the eclipse on June 21st, but then he's going to go retrograde back. He is going to go retrograde back into the fire. And so it's this period that's going to lead to it. Now, when does this continue until? Well, it could be until the end of the dog days of summer, August 11th. I mean, that scene is sort of highlighting that. Or it could represent Pluto going all the way back into the fire when retrograde motion ends on October 4th. So maybe all the way into October. I'm not sure. But that gives us a time frame. It also is a really interesting way of representing Pluto retrograde at the same time as the dog days of summer, I think. Jason gets kidnapped. She chases after him, finds this guy. He's got his 1111 scratched on his forehead because he couldn't put Jeremiah 1111 on a sign. He had to do it to himself. See how they were tortured under there? Because he's the mirror or the shadow guy with the man with the Bible verse who was killed. She goes underground to find him. You see the rabbits under there. This is a conversation that happens in the script for the film, but does not happen in the film. That's what I think. I wanted to include it because I think it's important. Zora says, "Who's going to clean all this up?" Because her and her dad are looking around. Gabe are looking around with his bodies and everything. And that scene is shown in the film, but they don't have this conversation. And he says, "Not me." And she says, "Is it the end of the world?" And Gabe says, "Nah, the world isn't going to end. It's just going to be different." And Zora stops and cries, "I don't want it to be different." And so then there's a big fight, between them. She ends up killing the real Adelaide, and the end of it is a memory that she was underground at one point. And so this Adelaide actually is a survivor from the underground. And that's how it ends. Now, but the big picture is what? It's exactly what we're seeing right now and what we're going to be seeing coming soon. The protests get worse after the blackout. Okay? Now, so you have your blackout, and then it gets bad. So the blackout, I guess, is going to be these events, these blackout events that are coming as a part of the protests that begin the next week. And then we'll have to see when that late fastball of Alistair happens. You're probably representing Alistair Crowley, of course. But this whole period that starts now and goes through anywhere from between the end of the dog days of summer, August 11th, all the way into October with Pluto retrograde. We also have, and IPEC go to Neptune retrograde until the end of November. We've got this window of time that seems to be when things really take off. Okay? And that's what it looks like is being represented in us. And us is representing the U.S., right? Who are you? What are you? We're Americans. And they're going to F the police, right? They're coming from the underground. There's going to be a slaughter. All of that. This is completely about the protests. A warning, a strange warning in Minnesota. The first warning that was in the news is about Minnesota in this film as well. Predicted. It's just like Thriller. It's not just a movie, right? It's just a movie, and they go out and they see the exact same thing happen in the real world that they saw in the movie. Well, that's what's here as well. This isn't just a movie. This is telling you what's supposed to happen according to their plans. So that's why they've been telling people, get out. It was because of the protests. Get out, get out. You should have left. Why? Because the blackout's coming. And after the blackout comes, at some point in the late innings, violence, a slaughter. Okay, so that's all I have. I'm sorry it went long. I know it wasn't as organized as I usually keep my videos. I really wanted to get this out. If I had my way, if I could have done it differently, I would have done it as parts because it's so much. But I hope you still gained something from it. And blessings. Take care. Like, subscribe, share, all that.